you are stronger than you think. You've just forgotten. You've just forgotten. And I know you have stories, you have reasons, you have circumstances, and those are all real. But honestly, you have to ask yourself, how long are you going to allow those to prevent you from having happiness in your life? Because the truth is, all of those stories can be used as your underdog hero's journey. All right. Hello, guys. Welcome to this week's live mini training. So this week's winner was depression and the spiritual awakening. And I'm really excited to talk about this topic because I think that when we get into a state of depression, and I know because I've been there, when we get into a state of depression, we feel like there's no way out. We feel like it's our lifelong prison, like we're doomed to stay there. And the truth is that it is possible to get out. You just have to have the sheer will and desire to do it. Okay. I also want to implement kind of a trigger warning for this conversation because I'm not a believer in the victim mentality. And I know, again, everything that I talk about, everything that I speak from comes from direct life experience. And so being in depression can easily cause a victim mentality, but when it gets to a point where you allow the emotion that you have or the circumstances that you have control or dictate how you feel, then you're in a state of a victim mentality. And when you stay in that victim mentality, you not only are powerless, but you feel powerless, and it is not going to get you where you want to go. Fear can keep you from drowning, but it will never teach you how to fly. Anger can keep you from drowning, but it will never teach you how to fly. And so if you're here listening to this and you are comfortable living in your depression, you're probably not going to resonate with what I'm about to tell you. But if you are in depression and you really are looking for a way out, if you really want to up-level your life and live a better quality of life with purpose and fulfillment and happiness, then keep watching. Okay? So, first of all, I want to say just because you're depressed does not mean that you get a merit badge. You don't get special privileges because you're depressed. Because let's be honest, guys. There's a lot of people in the world right now who are depressed. You don't get a merit badge for pointing out that it's raining, right? You get the merit badge when you invent a way to prevent the rain from hitting you, which is like the umbrella, right? So just because you have depression, you don't get a merit badge for having depression. You get a merit badge when you find your way out of it and you help others out of it too. When there's challenges, when there's obstacles, when there are really hard, dense, uncomfortable, emotionally excruciating states and circumstances in life, I never go into the victim, well, it's not never. Anytime I notice that I'm in the victim mentality, I always get myself out of it because sometimes it is an unconscious pattern that we run. And so the moment that you realize that you're starting to ask yourself, why is this happening to me? Why does this always happen to me? Here we go again. This is just my life now. When you say those kinds of things, you're in the victim mentality, okay? You're never going to get anywhere or go beyond that. You're not. You have to ask yourself more powerful questions because the power does lie within you. Depression can be a gift because it shines a light on all of the things that you need to overcome, all of the things that are holding you back. Now, I understand that depression will trigger self-loathing and it will trigger self-pity. The dangerous aspects, the dangerous part about that is that self-pity and self-loathing are addictive, and it's because there is a self-soothing aspect to it, right? You're making yourself feel better by saying, why me? But really what you're doing is you're holding yourself back from getting an answer. You're holding yourself back from receiving higher intelligence, more empowering strategies, or a problem to the solution. So if you take a step back and stop identifying as depressed, if you take a step back and stop identifying as a depressed person and realize that you're in a temporary state of your life where you're experiencing depression, automatically you up level just from that awareness and level of understanding alone. Okay? Now, once you have awareness, right? For the first step is awareness, and then the second step is acceptance. Acceptance is the foundation to all healing. It doesn't mean, but when you accept something, it doesn't mean that you're justifying it. It doesn't mean that it makes it right. But by accepting the facts and looking at the data, you can use that to up level and get better. It's when you're unconscious of it, or when it's this nebulous thing that kind of is haunting you or being a thorn in your side that you can't quite locate. That's when it's that the worst prison to be in is the one that you don't even know that you're in. So first you need to acknowledge that and be aware that you're experiencing depression, not that you are depressed, because it is not who you are, but that you're experiencing a chapter in your life where you're depressed. Now, the second aspect of that is that you have to decide. You have to make a decision. It's going to be pleasant. It's not, well, it's actually not going to be pleasant, but you have to make the decision. Are you done? Are you sick and tired of living with depression? Are you sick and tired with low energy? Are you sick and tired of knowing that you could be living in a higher potential, higher purpose, but you just can't get yourself up to it? Right? And if those answers are no, like if you're not ready, you have to ask yourself, how is depression serving you? How is it serving you? How do you benefit from being depressed? Because maybe it's because you get more attention. Maybe it's because you can empathize with other people. Maybe it's because it is a scapegoat from having to do anything more than the limits that are created because of your depression. Like, you have to have a real conversation with yourself. I do understand, because I know about the programming and the subconscious mind, and understanding that by the time you're 35, you have you're just a memorized version of yourself. And so it does get to a point where if you've had something for so long, like you've had depression for months or years, I'm talking about more like on the heavier month, like 6 to 9 months, but really more like the 9 to 12 month mark, and then also within the years, it does get to a point where it becomes a subconscious program, and that's just how you operate. And so sometimes it can be hard, it can be challenging to step back and say, I'm experiencing depression, instead of I have depression. Because when you identify with depression, you claim that as who you are. You're claiming that in your energy. And so therefore you're obviously creating more of it. It does get to a point where the depression, if you've lived with it long enough, it does get to a point where you don't feel like it's something separate from you, that it's just simply who you are. And you first have to break that and separate that. If you don't, after having this conversation, it is a choice. Okay, your depression is serving you somehow. So, like I said, it's shining a light when you think about the thoughts that go through your head while you're in a depressive state. If you become aware of the thoughts that are going through your head, and that is a gift, because it is shining a light on all of the things that you need to work on, do your belief work with, do your energy healing with, connect to Creator with. You always got to be in this space of optimization. How can I optimize this moment? What can I gain from this experience? Because otherwise, again, you're falling into the victim mentality. You cannot let emotions dictate you. You cannot let emotions override your free will, because that's why you're depressed, because you are letting your emotions override your free will. You are stronger than you think. You've just forgotten. You've just forgotten. And I know you have stories, you have reasons, you have circumstances, and those are all real. But honestly, you have to ask yourself, how long are you going to allow those to prevent you from having happiness in your life? Because the truth is, all of those stories can be used as your underdog hero's journey, but you're allowing them to be your demise. Does that make sense? Both truths are available to you. Yes, it was garbage. It was unfair. I'm not saying that it wasn't. Okay? But are you going to look at that and reframe it from a victim to, this is my hero's journey? This is what I've overcome. These circumstances have taught me this. And I'm so ready to help those who are behind me who still need help. Right? So, I briefly talked about this, but depression can be addictive, right? And we use it as an escape. We use the depression as an escape, a reason not to go out, a reason not to go see friends, a reason not to clean the dishes, a reason to not get better. Okay? You have to ask yourself, are you feeding that depression? Are you feeding it? Because honestly, you're the only one keeping it alive. You're the only one keeping it alive. There's this concept, and I really, really love it. And it's, you talk about the problem once. And then every time after that, you only talk about the solution. Okay? So you want to acknowledge and honor the fact that you are going through a hard time, that you are experiencing depression. But once you talk about it, if you talk about it more often than that, then you're just feeding it. Then you're just keeping it alive. You are not only emotionally giving more reasons as to why you're justified in your victim mentality depressive state, but you're creating and strengthening the neural pathways in your brain that also keep that thought pattern, those emotional patterns alive. And that has to stop if you really want to get out of depression. Okay? You have to desire it. So you have to ask yourself, do you want a solution? Do you want a solution? Or are you happy being in depression? And I know logically you're like, no, obviously I'm not. But if you said no, that you don't want a solution, or you do want a solution, but you're not willing to take action in order to up level or get out of that, then I could argue that you really don't want to get out of your depression. And it's not a judgment. You'll come to the surface when you're ready. But I'm telling you that you can have a really happy, fulfilling life. It is possible for you. If you knew half the stuff that I went through as a child, as a young 20-year-old, I think it would shock you. So, depression, when used and leveraged correctly, if you look at it as it is shining a light on all of the things that you need to overcome, all of the things that are holding you back, all of the things that need to be transmuted, depression can be a very good bouncing off point. If you think about it, right, the higher you jump, right, so let's say we have a trampoline down here, okay? When you jump off, the lower that you go, jumping off the trampoline, the higher you ascend on the other side, right? This is a reality where there is dark and light, where there is density and fluidity, right? And so the depression can be not only a part of your hero's journey and your success story, but it also can keep things in context. When you bounce up, when you decide to bounce up from that depression and you're soaring higher, the depression in that temporary chapter in your life, if so chosen to stay temporary, can gift you to see how far you've come. But again, you have to want that. And you have to want that more. You have to want that more than the comfort of staying in your little depressive swamp. Okay? So when you spiritually awaken, because this is the conversation of the spiritual awakening and depression. So typically when you go through a spiritual awakening, you realize that everything that you thought you knew, everything that you believed in was wrong or altered or disguised or distorted in some way. And so one of the most painful experiences, at least emotionally, one of the most painful experiences that a human can have is an identity crisis. When you thought that maybe, I don't want to get too conspiracy theory, but like when you thought that maybe at one point, like politicians had your best interest and now you realize that they don't, and maybe your favorite leader is actually scum, right? That leader could have been associated with your identity. And to think that they're incongruent with what they're presenting to the world, that can be really seriously emotionally damaging, right? And so also when we have an identity and associations to things such as depression, when we shift our identity, it becomes uncomfortable, not only because our subconscious, because it likes to live within a safety net framework, our subconscious is like, whoa, something's different here, we need to go back, right? But when we're shifting out of identifying as a depressive person, and now realizing that we have the free will to change and alter the circumstances and the things that have happened to us, that can be very emotionally vulnerable, and that can cause an identity crisis. And most will do whatever they can to avoid pain. Here's the thing though, sometimes the pain, when addressed for purposes of transmutation and healing, the pain can be such a gift, because on the other side of that pain always is clarity. You just have to be strong enough to see it through. So when you spiritually awaken, you realize that everything that you ever knew or thought was wrong, maybe you didn't even realize that you were a soul having a human experience. Maybe you didn't believe in a multidimensional reality. Maybe you didn't believe that there were spirit guides. Maybe you didn't believe that you could meditate, right? All of those things. And so when you spiritually awaken, there's this dismantling of the old self and the old beliefs process. And in that, there's a lot of discomfort, there's a lot of uncertainty, and so it's typical to fall into being depressed. But guys, it's a choice. It really is. And that's why it's so important to have somebody there to help you, because when you're sitting there trying to figure this out yourself, you're staying in a closed loop. You're trying to figure it out, but the thing is you can't think beyond what you feel. Your nervous system cannot receive information that is not equal to the emotion that you're experiencing. And so when you have somebody, whether it be a friend or even a mentor, that can help you, but it's got to be a friend that also does not have the same problem as you, because otherwise they're going to help contribute to that closed loop. It's got to be somebody who is where you want to be. But obviously the best one is to get a mentor. But when you try to figure it out yourself, you try to make sense and meaning to it, but you can't think beyond what you feel, you keep yourself in a closed loop going around in circles and circles and circles and circles, and so you never find the answer. Right? And then because you can't find the answer, you internally punish yourself. You internally say horrible things about yourself when there's nothing wrong with you. Even in a depressed state, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just an experience that you're having, and I would love to help you through it. Another person would love to help you through it. Again, when those thoughts are going through your head, whether it be conscious or unconscious, it's shining a light on what needs to be fixed. And then you can't think beyond what you feel. Literally, your nervous system cannot accept information that is not equal to what you're experiencing. And so you either need to wait till you're in a more elevated state, a higher vibrational, maybe you're more happy, joyful, maybe you're even full on elated, right? That's when you can solve the answer to your problem, but you cannot solve the problem in the emotion that the problem started with. It's impossible and also unproductive. I want you to know, closing thoughts, depression, it does not have to be your death sentence. It does not have to be your reality. I came from a lot of space in being depressed, and I built myself up. So I'm telling, there's hundreds of thousands of other people who have done it too. So you must realize that depression does not have to be your prison. You can move beyond it. It is possible. You will have to exercise a sheer will. You have to will what you want. Okay? If you're ready to seriously have a happy, fulfilling life, then that has to bear more weight. That has to be more important to you than falling victim to the self-loathing and the self-pity that depression brings. And if you need help, DM me and let's get you on a call. I would love to help you. I am an expert in this. Okay? All right, guys, I hope that this was helpful. If you're struggling, do not suffer in silence. And I will catch you guys next week. Take care.